Healthy wherever you are on this Friday afternoon. I saw a Facebook message from a friend earlier today talking about how she was surprised. Well, she was wondering whether it was wintertime or whether it was springtime. And wherever we are, around this country, apparently the weather is pretty good. So, without much further ado, let's talk about the good this year in the world of sports. And by the way, you can call in the show by dialing area code 323-962-1937. I am about to go on Facebook, so if you are on Facebook and you're listening to the show, I'll say hello. I'm also going to probably, you know, jump into my Twitter page as well. So hopefully you all are listening in, and if any question you want to ask, don't be afraid to ask. We hailed the champions this year. There's been a lot of great champions, a lot of unexpected things happened this year in the world of sports. Obviously, kicking it off with Auburn University winning the college football championship, and Cam Newton's finishing his magical ride and able to hold off Oregon and win the national championship. Big shout out to them. I'm not going to go through every team that won a championship, but I'm going to give shouts out to the Packers. I'm going to give a shout out to the Dallas Mavericks, two teams that essentially no one really thought would have the type of season that they ended up having this year, and both teams winning championships. The Packers came from the wild card ranks to be able to do so, and Dallas suffered a tough injury during the season, losing Caron Butler, and was some way able to parlay that into a championship season. Big shout out to the UConn men's basketball team. Coach Calhoun was been under a lot of scrutiny, and you will hear that word used a lot today from me because it's been the year of the scrutiny. And basically, Coach Calhoun is now even serving a suspension for actions that happened during last season, but was able to get his team into the championship game where they defeated Butler to win the national championship. And to Texas A&M's women's basketball team, in a year in which most people felt that it was Maya Moore's title to win or Stanford, Texas A&M was able to overcome playing against rivals from their conference, with Baylor having Miss Brittany Grimes, and somehow, some way, figuring out a way to win the national championship. Big shout out to the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball. Again, another team coming from out of nowhere to win the World Series. A lot of people felt that it was, a year of the Phillies, or the year of the Yankees, or the Red Sox, and obviously we all know what happened with the failures of the Red Sox to get into the postseason, and we also know what happened with the Phillies. I mean, yeah, they got all those great pitchers, but all you have to do is stick in the game with them to the very end and let your bullpen beat their bullpen, and boom, you're a champion. And so, big shout out to St. Louis. Obviously, they lost Albert Pujols to the Angels, which is a huge story out here. And Texas ended up losing Mr. Wilson to the Angels, too. So, you know, craziness, in the world of sports in terms of baseball, certain things happening. But at the end of the day, the Cardinals are your champs, so you got to give them their respect. Big shout out to the Boston Bruins. As much as I hate giving anything from Boston any kind of credit, got to respect the Bruins for, doing what they did, going on the road to Vancouver to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, the goaltending of Mr. Thomas is top notch, and they beat the team that had every statistical advantage, the best in the league in every category. They found a way to get it done. So much, much, much respect to them for doing what they did. Also, want to give a big shout out to, how about Novak Djokovic? Beginning of this year and into the fall, I talked about him almost at every show. I mean, the guy didn't lose a match from from May until September, really. I mean, he didn't win the Grand Slam in tennis because he did lose at Wimbledon. But the fact of the matter remains, he had an epic, unbelievable year. I believe he only lost 4 matches, and actually, the later of the season, he lost matches because he was physically injured. And his first loss, yeah, he lost to Federer at Wimbledon. But his second loss, he basically had a shoulder injury, and he couldn't finish the match. So the greatest season in tennis history, I mean, obviously McEnroe's season of '84 was extraordinary, but a lot of people want to argue that Djokovic's season was as good as McEnroe's. Big shout out to Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart comes from out of nowhere winning, the NASCAR Sprint Cup. A lot of people thought Tony Stewart was washed up. Well, Tony Stewart showed that he still has what it takes to be a champion, and he became one. Shouts out to Lindsey Vonn, the downhill skier from the United States, who continues to rewrite all the America's record books in skiing. She's awesome, with a capital A. Same thing with Yani Tseng, even though she's not American, but anytime you dominate, she's dominating the women's golf tour like she's playing by herself. I mean, she's won, I believe, of the last 8 majors, I believe she's got 5 wins. So, she's doing her thing. And hopefully, women's golf will get back on TV so we can be able to see it more. Speaking of golf, Rory McIlroy got his first major this year. So the supposed face of the sport for the next 20 years, he got on the board this year by winning a major. Congrats to Darren Clarke as well. Darren Clarke, one of many people's favorite athletes in the world, winning his first major, winning it overseas, winning the British Open, made a lot of people feel good about golf. And of course, Charles Schwartzel winning the Masters and Keegan Bradley winning the PGA shows that there was a lot of diversity in winners this year in golf. Obviously, Tiger Woods got back on the win track towards the end of the season, even though it was not an official tour event. But the fact that he got a win has a lot of people feeling that next year he'll get back into the winner's circle more often. And a big shout out to the United States for winning the President's Cup, actually. And he happened to be the one who won the clinching match. Also want to give a shout out to Coach K for passing Coach Knight, becoming the winningest coach in men's college basketball history. What else can you say? The guy's been a class act for over 30 years. He's a reason why kids go to that university. And there's really nothing bad I can say about it. Congratulations to Coach K. I've already mentioned Drew Brees passing Marino's stats, and the NFL should pat itself on its back for having a good season. A lot of positive things to take away from this year, and nothing anyone can say bad about the NFL. Big shout out to LSU. Yes, they're an undefeated team. They're the only unbeaten team in college football. They've played the toughest schedule in the nation. They deserve to be playing for a national championship. We'll talk about that in the bad section about how Alabama doesn't belong. But the fact of the matter is that they're there. Robert Griffith III winning the Heisman Trophy. That's a huge deal. Coming from out of nowhere, and those who saw that game last night, he showed you why he is a special athlete. I mean, that team scored 67 points. He didn't put up tremendously gaudy numbers. He didn't throw for 3 trillion yards like he normally does. But he did just enough to allow his team to get the victory last night over a game Washington team. And it's good to see Washington back to playing football like that. Coach Sarkisian deserves a lot of credit for rebuilding that program. College football's had somewhat of a renaissance this year because it seems like it's a good thing now if kids want to stay in school and get a degree, as opposed to the scrutiny and the lure of money. Andrew Luck obviously is everyone's unanimous first pick in the draft, but Andrew Luck's father is a very wealthy man. He's an athletic director, I believe, at the University of West Virginia. So it's not like they're hurting for money. And Barkley's family out here in LA does very well, so it's not like they're hurting for money. So it's good to see that the kids who need to come out are coming out, and those who are staying in aren't doing it for the money. They're doing it because they want to get their degree, and they're enjoying being a child. There's been a lot of good in sports this year, but unfortunately, folks, we haven't heard a lot about the good. All we've heard about is the bad and the ugly. And we're going to talk about both the good, actually the bad and the ugly, in the next 40 minutes of this show on 89.7 KLAS FM after this.
Including expert collision work, LA Radiation